Today is Monday, November the 19th, and the Board of Commissioners usually meets on the second Monday, but due to Veterans Day and us honoring the veterans, we've moved it up to today's date. So at this time, I will call a meeting to order and would request that everyone please stand. We always begin our meeting with a prayer and a pledge, and tonight Commissioner Green will do our prayer, and Commissioner Vaughn will do our pledge.
Let's pray. Father, we come to you this evening as humble as we know how to thank you and praise you for every blessing that you've bestowed upon us. Father, we pray that you'll forgive us of our sins so that we might be able to approach the throne of grace. Father, we pray that as we meet tonight that we'll have nothing but the best interests of the people of McDowell County in our hearts and minds. Help us to do that that's pleasing to you, we pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, gentlemen, our commissioners, you have the minutes in the packet, and you've had the opportunity to look over those. What's the pleasure of the board concerning the minutes?
Move to approve. Second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, we have tonight's agenda before us, and you've had opportunity here again to look at this, review it. Are there any additions or deletions to the agenda before we have an approval? Okay, staff have anything? Okay, commissioners, there being none, what's the pleasure of the board concerning approving our agenda for tonight's meeting?
Motion approved agenda.
I second.
Discussion? All in favor say aye. Okay, motion carries. Let's move to our first item on our appointment schedule, and we've got a very distinguished gentleman with us here tonight. You know, from time to time we have people who've done great things come in or in your boardroom, and tonight we got one of those men here with us tonight, David Morgan. We're here to recognize 50 years of fire service to the people of McDowell County. And David, stand up so most everybody probably knows who you are, but we want you to stand up so everybody can see it. And, you know, they had a surprise celebration for David, and his department did, and a lot of great things went on down there. But we wanted to take part in it as a board, and we wanted to officially recognize you and your family, because we understand in emergency services, Barry's there, Brenda and Lynn have both been in law enforcement. The family, it's a family that's involved in emergency services, not just the person who is doing and providing the service, but it's a family. And as you can see, David, you got a lot of your family in here tonight, extended family involved in the emergency services, so in the fire protection. So we do appreciate what you've done. And I've got a proclamation here that the board needs to take action on, and then Commissioner Vice Chairman Peters will read this, and we'll have you come up, okay? So what's the pleasure of the board concerning the proclamation to honor David J. Morgan, volunteer firefighter for the Glenwood Fire Department? Do I hear a motion to approve?
Move to approve proclamation.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. David, if you don't mind, sir, if you can come right up here, and Barry, if you can go right up there. And we want to go ahead and read some of your accomplishments. Of course, it will fill up more than one piece of paper. We understand that, but we've highlighted a few things, and we want to go ahead and recognize you now, okay?
David, it's an honor and privilege for you to read it. Help me step back down here. Oh, my. All right. Proclamation to honor David J. Morgan, volunteer firefighter for Glenwood Fire Department. Whereas David J. Morgan was born on July the 11th, 1950, and has lived in McDowell County in the Glenwood community his entire life, and is the husband of Kathleen and proud father of Natalie, Vincent, and Amber. And whereas Mr. Morgan joined the Glenwood Fire Department as soon as he turned 18, although he had spent years before this helping around the department, he has served as lieutenant, captain, the chief engineer, and the department for many years. Whereas David J. Morgan has served as a member of the McDowell County Fire Commission and taught at multiple fire schools across North Carolina for many years, and is a past recipient of the William G. Countess Award from McDowell County Fire Association. And whereas Mr. Morgan helped in building the original fire station, which is still in use today, and was involved in the building of the current fire station. And whereas David J. Morgan is also a member of the Glenwood Ruetan, having joined when he was 18 years old, and assisted with many fundraisers volunteering as an auctioneer, having attended auctioneer school in Arkansas at a very young age. And whereas Mr. Morgan is also very involved in his church, having served as a Sunday school teacher, served on numerous committees, and as a deacon. Now therefore be proclaimed on the 19th day of November 2018, the McDowell County Board of Commissioners recognizes and honors David J. Morgan for his 50 years of active service to the Glenwood Fire Department and for his dedication to the Glenwood community and McDowell County. Congratulations.
David, is there anything you want to say? Anything you want to say? We know you don't. You don't.
There's not much you can say. You just get in and stay there.
Hey, words of wisdom right there. Words of wisdom.
Mr. Chairman, can I-
Let's get the board out here with David too. Yeah. Okay. And David, you want to we'll get your family up here too. Let's get your family up here too. This side. Look at this riser.
There's those white wires.
Wait just a minute.
Well centered on.
David, once again, on behalf of our board, we appreciate the service.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for all you've done.
Oh, yeah.
Just stay right in there. Hang right in there. And saw that part of the road to where it is today. We appreciate your leadership.
Well, you couldn't serve the better county. I'll tell you
Thank
that.
you. Thank you.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Y'all, let's give him one more hand, okay? Okay, that's some of the fun stuff that commissioners get to do. We always love to recognize lifetime achievements, and right there's a man that has some lifetime achievements. For the younger people watching, he made one comment. He said he just stayed there. So I want to encourage you, have some stickability about you. Don't just, the first little adversity hits, people want to take off running. I've heard this saying, David, and you might have heard it. Two fields out there, there's briars on both sides of the fence. So you can't run, can you? Stay right in there. So thank you, sir, for your leadership and the example you provided for young firemen, young men and women coming in behind you. Thanks so much. At this time, let's move to item B on our appointment schedule. This is a no-wake zone, and at this time, I will declare the board in a public hearing setting and pursuant to the general statutes that have been advertised in the paper. So at this time, Mr. Wooten, sir, go ahead and lead us out.
Cheryl is pulling up the map so the board and the public can see the request. So a little bit about this process. The North Carolina Wildlife Resources Commission is a group, commission based in Raleigh. They govern no-wake zones on the state's lakes that are open to the public, including Lake James. We've had some requests in the past that have been through this process. This one is no different from any past ones. A lot of times you'll have either homeowners association, community association, homeowners themselves, and sometimes actually wildlife themselves will initiate the process. I believe this time it was homeowner or homeowner association initiated. So when this happens, years ago the process would kick off. We would have a hearing, and then it would go to wildlife, and they would investigate, and then it maybe would come back. And so they changed the process so where a request comes in to the county and to wildlife, wildlife will then investigate the request and put forward a recommendation to put in the designation or not. And so you have this request, a little bit of information where this is the old Wildlife Club subdivision. The line over to your right is the county boundary, so it's fairly close to the Burke County boundary. You do have one public comment that was emailed that's in your packet, and you have two that are on your table. You were sent a couple of weeks ago, and we felt to put in the packet the comment from Wildlife recommending the designation, and that would be an enforcement officer who spends a lot of his time on the lake. So that's why they send them out and not someone from Raleigh that doesn't know anything about Lake James. So you have received a previous recommendation from that local enforcement officer for the designation. So the process is you're to receive public comment, for, against, etc. After the comment, it is your choice to move it forward tonight, to table it, to deny it. That is your request in the rulemaking process. So you do have that option at this point. So again, you've got three comments, one digital, two on paper, requesting the designation, the wildlife recommendation, and any comment from the public tonight, and board, of course.
Okay, comments or questions? So in this particular case, you're saying the wildlife has reviewed and they have said they want to go ahead, or they would approve it, the recommendation?
Right, their local enforcement officer has investigated the request, and his recommendation would be to move forward based on the location, the speed of traffic.
Has the homeowners association that this development is in, have they offered a statement?
We have not received anything from Old Wildlife Club. Homeowner Association mostly has been residents at this point. I don't know if they asked and denied. I just don't know the process on their end.
Okay. Comments or questions by commissioners? Okay.
Exactly what areas are we talking about putting no lakes on? Is it so many feet from the shore, or is it
It would be 50 feet from the shore.
I'd like opportunity for us to look at
Okay,
it. I'm not against it, but I'd just like to look at it.
let's have input now. Anybody here, we get the lights actually, so we'll see who's going to be speaking. All right, anybody on this side of the room wish to comment on the information you've heard tonight? If you do, just wave, stand up, and we'll hear you. Yes, sir.
My name's Todd. I'm president of the Lake James Environmental Association. And anytime we see, I know this is a safety issue the way the wildlife officer is looking at it, but anytime we see an opportunity to protect the shoreline, it's a good idea. As you guys know, the last 15 years, this lake has developed at a rate that never has been before. That with some of the protections and barriers that aren't there today, you start to see silt and sedimentation rise up in the water. If you're ever out there on a Saturday or Sunday, and the nature of the boats have changed in the last 15 years too. They're much larger, they pick up bigger weights. And so you see that silt and sedimentation in the water, and it could be a safety issue, especially after a rain event. When you see all the trash that comes down into the lake, through the rivers, that sedimentation can hold bacteria in it. So when you see kids jumping off the docks in the middle of very turbid water, you start to get concerned. So where we can protect the shoreline with things like this 50 feet off the shoreline, I think it's a great idea.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Bell. Anyone else on this side wish to comment? There being none, anybody on this side wish to comment? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, my name's Mrs. Katner, and I live at the end of Screechell. There are 5 homeowners that actually will be impacted by this. We're one of them. This is an issue which has gotten worse, I would say, in the past 2 or 3 years. It is a very serious safety issue. I have 3 grandchildren, and I can't let my grandchildren swim or float in or around our dock because of the way the line corner gets cut and the speed in which some of these boats come flying by. I actually spoke to the wildlife officer 2 years ago when my husband and I were on the dock and our boat uncovered, and my 6-year-old granddaughter was there. Luckily, we had a flotation device on her, but a boat came approximately 25 feet from our dock, and the weight, knocked her right off it, and she landed in the water. So I understand the erosion issues, and we have a natural beach in between our house and the Watson's house. And I can tell you that the erosion issues are real, and so is the pollution issues. But the safety issues, not just for those of us who live there and swim off our docks or swim on the beach, but we have a lot of fishermen who fish in that natural beach area, and that is secluded. You can't, when you're in there fishing and you go to pull out, it's a blind corner, you can't see. So they're coming out at trolling speed, and you have boats flying by them that cut the corner off. So to me, it's not a matter of when something's going to happen or if something's going to happen, it's a matter of when. So basically, I'm very much in support of it, as are the other homeowners who live in the impacted area.
Okay. Anyone else wish to speak on this side? Okay, at this time, we're going to we'll have a motion to go out of a public hearing setting so the board can discuss it. So,
Motion to go to public hearing.
okay. Discussion, all in favor say aye. Okay. What's the pleasure of the board concerning this request?
I'd like to move that we table it until the next meeting. I'd like the opportunity to go out and look at it. I used to work the lake, for the sheriff's office with the boat, so I'd like to go and look at it.
Okay, I have a motion and a second. Discussion? All those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, passes 5-0. What we'll do, we'll go out and look at that and to the people who spoke tonight. And yeah, our concern is for safety too. And also, we want to make sure people have access to fish, but we want to make sure that everybody's safe doing it. So we'll look at it and it'll be back on our agenda, okay? Thank you, and thanks for being here and speaking tonight. Let's move to our next item on our appointment schedule, and we have a 515 emergency update grant request from Mr. William Kehler. Mr. Kehler, come forward, sir. We hear you gladly. Mr. Kehler is our Emergency Services Director, correct?
Yes, sir.
I get him and Craig mixed up their titles all the time. Okay, go ahead.
It's okay, I'm going to do the ARC grant first. Commissioners, thank you for allowing us the opportunity to present. Tonight, the first item that we would like to present to you is the Appalachian Regional Commission, the ARC grant request. This request comes after many years of work by the McDowell Health Coalition. I know retired County Manager Chuck Abernathy, as well as the Chamber of Commerce, worked on a subcommittee for workforce wellness. There has been a tremendous amount of legwork performed on workforce wellness in McDowell County, including a study that was performed by UNC Chapel Hill. So the request tonight is essentially a springboard from the work that has been done for many years on this issue. ARC, in awarding the grant to Isothermal Development, seeks to contract with our community paramedic program to offer clinical services at local industrial sites. This would be a pilot. The industrial sites would be selected based upon grant requirements from ARC. Isothermal would be the fiscal entity of the grant, with McDowell County being contracted by Isothermal to provide the community paramedic services. The total amount of this grant is, or the total amount of the contract, the proposed contract is $267,045. That would fund one full-time position within the community paramedic program, fully equipped SUV for the community paramedic, and other operating expenses related to the community paramedic working in the industrial setting for a total of 24 months. During this pilot, the overall objective is to try to move the markers of employee health as far as referrals to primary care services, incorporating a telemed component to where our workers in the industrial setting would be able to have telehealth component, be able to see a primary care physician via telemedicine in the industrial setting. It improves productivity, it decreases absentee rates, and it can lead to improving outcomes of health and wellness in the overall family. Under this contract, zero operating funds from our operating budget that is tax funded there would be zero funds applied. It would simply all be funded 100% by the contract through isothermal. During that time, isothermal's goal is to build a business model and a business plan that seeks to sustain the program if the pilot proves successful. So this is not a full-time position we will come back in 2 years and ask you to sustain. This will only be sustained, my approach and my opinion on this will only be sustained if isothermal can prove that this is a valuable model and there is a sustainable business plan. We're simply a contractor providing clinical services during the 2-year pilot in the community. I think it is important to note that this is believed to be the first program of its kind in the U.S. That would place a community paramedic in the industrial setting to try to move the markers and the social determinants of health that we see have detrimental effects in a rural setting. With that, I'll be glad to take your questions. Our goal is that community paramedic that is working the industrial setting would be an existing staff member. We would have the backfill, but we anticipate utilizing an existing staff member to fill this role.
Okay, Mr. Williams, anything you need to add to that, sir?
No, I mean, it's a great program for the staff. So no, I'm gonna keep going, I guess. But yes, just to piggyback just a little bit, it's no risk, no cost to the county. It's a great way to get in the community a little bit more, build on the great work that's already underway in that program. And so it's a win-win for the organization.
Okay, other comments from commissioners?
You mentioned 24 months. Is that what happens after the 24? Do we pick it up?
No, there will be no request for me to sustain that. We're simply providing clinical services for 24 months to see if the pilot can be proved successful. During that 24 months, isothermal will be working to develop a business model and plan in an attempt to sustain the program.
It would be isothermal that would come back to the county
if they seek to further contract services. That is correct. I think it's also important to note that all of the equipment that would be purchased under this grant, which is a substantial amount of equipment, would be retained by the county in the EMS system.
So you'd have basically a vehicle 2 years old if it didn't work out, it wasn't sustainable, that would come to your agency, correct?
Yeah, you're not only looking at a vehicle, you're looking at very expensive pieces of medical equipment that would also be retained by the county. It's a win-win.
Talk just a minute, William, about how the community care paramedic program is helping keep people out of the emergency room. Hit on that a little bit.
Yeah, I've spoke several times talking about the positive effects that the community paramedic program has made to this county and to our organization. It was implemented in 2013. It was the second program in the state of North Carolina. It was the first rural program in North Carolina to be developed, but it seeks to manage high utilizers. We know social determinants of health that make people call EMS multiple times. We know we have had patients that have called EMS 40, 50, 60 times a year to be transported. Many of these patients are uninsured, and that's a direct cost to the county taxpayers. So when you look at 911 volume or EMS volume growing at 3 to 5% a year, this county was going to be faced with making a decision of adding more ambulances to be able to sustain and take on that volume. Adding an ambulance for 24 hours comes at a cost of about $500,000 a year. With this program, that cost a little more than $150,000 a year, much of which is we reap the savings from cost avoidance because uninsured patients are not calling 40 and 50 times a year. There's a direct cost to that. But instead of having that decision to add an additional ambulance for $500,000 a year, we are going on our 4th consecutive year of a decline in 911 volume. And we have cut the growth of our EMS volume, and we're actually on a decline. Eventually that's going to level out because you can only cut so much. But it's just not the financial aspect. It is making a substantial difference in the lives of these people. It's improved their quality of life. They are more healthy, they are more active, and they're happier people because their quality of life is improved. Because our community paramedics are making an impact, taking a holistic approach and caring for them one person at a time.
Can you introduce any community care paramedics present here tonight?
Yeah, so we've got our coordinator who's recovering from knee surgery, Lieutenant Chad Robinson in the back there. Sergeant Sam Robinson is here. Captain Presley has worked in that division. Deputy Director Jones has worked in that division some. But it's definitely a team effort. And I would note both Chad and Sam are sworn law enforcement officers, which has made a tremendous impact in our ability to respond to psychiatric patients. They can execute the involuntary commitments that saves law enforcement from having to get involved in keeping those deputies on the road when they're serving two roles.
Well, as the Board of Commissioners, I'll just go on record and state that our group right here is a leader in the state. William and his crew, y'all do wonderful, and I think that we are very, very fortunate to have y'all on the job because y'all are making a difference daily. And our board, we recognize that. We don't take that for granted, the work that y'all do day in, day out. And this board supports y'all. All 5 members of this board are behind y'all 110%, and you're saving lives, and we appreciate it. And so, anything else before we take action?
Back on the ARC grant, have you identified industries already?
Yeah, so the ARC has certain specific requirements that the industry has to be related to automotive or aviation. There is, I guess you could call it a gray area to where we could do some other industries that meet certain requirements. We piloted this with our existing staff at Columbia Forest Products, and it was extremely successful.
All right. What's the pleasure of the board concerning the information we've heard tonight?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we approve the expansion of the community care program. Let's give these guys the go-ahead with us affirmative.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, we see the matter you got.
Yeah, we actually have 2 more. They both concern the recent storms that we've had. I'd like to give a quick update of where we're at in the recovery process. As I've stated multiple times, recovery takes time. It is tedious work. It is diligent work on the amount of our staff, or on the part of our staff. And I'd like to give you an update tonight. It becomes very confusing when we're working 3 different storms. It's not only confusing for folks involved, but it certainly can become confusing for the citizens. So I hope to clarify any questions very quickly. I'd like to start with an overview of what type of declarations we're looking at. There are 2 types of declarations: a federal declaration. For a county to meet a federal or be federally declared, the state, in this case North Carolina, has to have a total of $14 million in damages across the state for the one single event, and then the counties can become eligible if they have enough cost and damage within their county. Our federal threshold is, prior to October, for Alberto and Florence, was a little over $165,000. The threshold changes, it is reevaluated each October. It is now $170,000, and that applies to Michael. That threshold is based upon CPI and the 2010 population census. The damages, when we look at the threshold, all of the damages across McDowell County, including the city of Marion and the town of Old Fort, for the entities. This isn't damage to private property, this is damage to public property and cost to the individual governments. This also, that threshold can include the damages that any electric co-op experience. So in our case, Rutherford Electric's damages and costs for a storm go towards our meeting the threshold. Also, Department of Transportation numbers count towards that threshold. If a county is declared a federal disaster area and you're eligible for public assistance, meaning that reimbursement for the city, the town, or the county, 75% of those funds come from the feds, 25% comes from the state. North Carolina is one of the few states that picks up that 25%. State declaration, the threshold is much higher. It's 1% of the county's or the town or the city's operating budget. Each entity must stand on their own. So that threshold is much larger, harder to meet. State declaration does not cover parks and recreation, any types of facilities, or public works. When we look at types of assistance, and this is where questions come up, there's two types of assistance in a disaster. PA, or known as public assistance, is what cities, towns, and counties apply for to seek reimbursement costs for damages to our infrastructure or storm-related costs. In PA, there's 6 categories. Debris removal, emergency protective measures, which would be overtime for EMS, fire, law enforcement, roads and bridges, water control facilities such as dams and levees, buildings and equipment, utilities, and parks and recreation. On the second type of assistance, which is individual assistance, that is where the private citizens are eligible for assistance. To meet IA in the declarations, the threshold is 25 homes destroyed or severely damaged. And in the storms that we have had, we have not met that threshold. So very quickly, let me go through the three storms. Alberto, the county met the federal threshold. The state did not have $14 million just in Alberto in itself. The state had $18 million when you look at the 2 weeks of flooding that we had. But Alberto in itself, if you look at it as a single event, there was not enough damage in North Carolina. That is why FEMA denied the second request for assistance. The assessment for the state declaration is forthcoming, and our office will be involved in that. There still is small business association loans for nonprofits and small businesses that sustained damage during Alberto. Moving to Florence. County was declared last week a federal disaster area and eligible for public assistance. Public assistance, though, means reimbursement costs to the county, town, and city. The individual citizen is in individual assistance, or IA. We did not meet the threshold for IA for Florence. The initial applicant briefing for McDowell County, the town of Old Fort, and the city of Marion will occur on November 28th between our office, North Carolina EM, and FEMA. Michael, it's really unbelievable that you've got 3 storms in 1 year. A lot of I think 2004 was the last federal storm that we dealt with. Michael's joint preliminary damage assessment, our initial numbers look like we have met the threshold. We will go through that assessment next Wednesday. McDowell County, the City of Marion, and McDowell Tech are the 3 entities that will be involved in the PDA for Michael. Once again, McDowell did not qualify for IA in Michael, or individual assistance. Last thing I will mention on the assistance part. For folks, we have a lot of citizens that are hurting. We have a lot of citizens that still are suffering from the damage from Alberto. Specifically private bridges, culverts, driveways. There's an extensive amount of damage, and it is in the millions. North Carolina has evaluated that. They sent IA assessors after Alberto. We are pursuing and trying to get assistance. We continue that work for these folks who have had bridges, driveways, culverts destroyed, including private developments. So that's where we're at with that. It is still a work in progress, but hopefully for folks listening at home or in the audience here, that may give some explanation of how this works. And with that, I'll take any questions before I recognize the emergency responders.
Very thorough, William. All thing we say, you got the information out there.
During Hurricane Michael, we were here, I think, 2 months ago, recognizing the emergency responders that conducted a water rescue along Catawba River Road in the midst of a landslide and unprecedented conditions on the Catawba River. Unfortunately, we had another water rescue that occurred during Michael. It was successful, and we would like to recognize not only the emergency responders that are here tonight, but it's also kind of a reunite them with the lady that they rescued in the river. So, October 11th, 7:29 a.m., McDowell County 911 received a mutual aid request from Buncombe County for a female victim needing rescue from swift water along Crooked Creek Road. This was just inside Buncombe County. Buncombe could not reach this location due to the amount of swift water that was across multiple roadways. Emergency personnel were immediately dispatched from Crooked Creek Fire Department, McDowell EMS, Emergency Management, and McDowell Rescue. While responding, crews encountered multiple hazards, including flooded roadways, downed trees, and mudslides. Numerous calls for service were being fielded by the 911 center due to Tropical Storm Michael. Upon arrival, crews found a small vehicle that had been swept off the road by raging water and a lady pinned by a tree against a vehicle which had come to rest in Crooked Creek. Emergency personnel began the dangerous task of entering the swift water to rescue the female victim trapped in the river. Emergency crews were able to extricate the victim from raging water and transport her to an awaiting ambulance. This was a critical life safety mission that was safely executed by true professionals who risked their own life to save another. 2018 has been a challenging year for emergency personnel, support agencies, and the citizens across this county. In 2018, the National Weather Service has issued 26 flood advisories, 10 flood warnings, 18 flash flood warnings, and 1 flash flood emergency for area creeks, rivers, and streams. McDowell County is blessed to have such dedicated men and women in each department who at a moment's notice will risk their own life to save another. We have seen this on display multiple times this year, and it's my great honor to recognize these men and women tonight at your November meeting. We also have Miss Joy Inabinette, who I asked her earlier. She is a resident of McDowell County and had just traveled across the Buncombe County line when her car, she stated she could not see the flooded road. She came around, and before she knew it, both of the front wheels were a couple feet into the water that had crossed the road. Before she could back up, the car was swept off the roadway. She's here tonight with her husband, and it's a true blessing that this lady was saved that morning, and would like to recognize the people that participated in this. From Crooked Creek Fire Department, if you will, please stand when I call your name. Randy Vess, Frank Seaman, Tyler Young. From EMS and Emergency Management, Lieutenant Chad Robinson. Should note, I'm not sure if he was just unlucky or he was in the he was the closest to this call, like he was the closest from our agency on the DOT where the 2 gentlemen were rescued in the Catawba River. Chad was one of the ones that was on that event as well. From the 911 Center, Sergeant Anne-Marie Reel, Jessica Pittman, one of our 911 telecommunicators, and in the Coordination Center where work was going on behind the scenes to move resources and coordinate the location, our 911 manager, Amberly Buff, Fire Marshal and Deputy Director, Craig Walker, Captain of our Special Operations, Andrew Presley, Sergeant Sam Robinson from Community Paramedic Division, Deputy Director Adrian Jones from our EMS Division, our Logistics Officer, Steve Hancock, was also working the Coordination Center, Chauncey Parker, and then Director Ricky Wright from McDowell Rescue, who's in the back of the room there. If we would please give these men and women.
I'm generally not someone that has a lot of words, and I like to stay behind the scenes, but when Mr. Kehler asked me about this, there was no way I could choose to be shy on this, because I can't imagine what would have happened if people had bonded together and found me. I will never forget when I kind of looked behind me and saw those yellow jackets and realized they had found my car and that there was a chance. And I will never forget what it felt like the first time I held people's hands and realized that I was getting pulled away from the car to the land. And so I just want to thank everybody, because I know it's people's jobs, but it takes a lot of character and a lot of bravery. And as someone who doesn't typically need help, I really needed help that day, and I'm appreciative for it.
It's certainly a team effort, and from the board support all the way through all of our community agencies and support partners, this is, we say it all the time, but we are one team and we have one mission.
William, thank you again to your staff and the volunteer fire departments. You know, when people, sometimes people, they don't understand, I think it's probably really the term, that when a request is made by a volunteer fire department for a tax increase in the district that department's in, I think people sometimes lose the sight that these men and women, they go out in dangerous situations. Whereas we're in our homes, they respond to this thing. They go out, as you said, you saw the yellow coats and you felt the hands bringing you out, Jordan. And so to me, some of the best money we spend is these volunteer fire departments and you men and women right here. Here again, our board will always support the volunteer fire department services in McDowell County because of the work they do, and also they help you on your homeowner's insurance. When the rate is lowered in a district, guess what? You as a homeowner, you save money. Your premium goes down and is reduced. And being from the now Sugar Hill District, Mupper Cove Sugar Hill District, when that rating went to a 5, that was pretty substantial. And so we just want to say, from the human side, you saw it right here tonight. Saved by the second swift water rescue out of 3 storms. There were 2 of those performed, and hats off to you men and women. Hats off to you. And we're so glad you're sitting over here, you and your husband, tonight. And William, thanks for all you do.
Got 18 people over the course of 3 storms, 18 people were rescued in swift water.
What about that? You heard the numbers. Would it be all right, Joey, would you be opposed to getting your picture made with these men and women right here?
That would be fine.
Is that okay if we do that? Okay, if y'all, Joey, get in the middle up here. Let's get those men and women who did that. Let's get y'all up here.
He'd hate that.
Because we want to put a spotlight on them and the work they did.
Thank you. My mom thanks
Okay, y'all, thanks so much. Great job. We appreciate it. All you do. Okay, this time we'll move to our 5:30 appointment. We have Tammy Wiley with us and Tim Cain. And come on up. This is concerning our 2019 Property Revaluation. So, Mr. Wooten, you want to lead out, and then we'll turn the floor over to him.
Again, very briefly, I won't say that this time, but this is, to me, it's the kickoff. I know there's been a lot of work behind the scenes. You hired Mr. Cain several months ago, but he's been doing a lot of work out in the field and in the office. People might have forgotten about this, but next year is the effective year for the next proper revaluation. And so here it is. So he'll give a little bit of information about what you have in front of you and the dates coming up where the public can be engaged.
Okay, Tim, the floor is yours, sir. Welcome.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Tim Cain, as he indicated. I really hate that we have to follow that. So, especially for this subject. What you've got in front of you is the schedule of values. We're going to respectfully request that we schedule a time for a public hearing later on in the month, so we can actually go through this. That way you've got an opportunity to take a cursory look at it. Essentially what a schedule of values is a cookbook or a book of recipes, for lack of a better way to put it. It explains the tables, the models that are going to go into place in valuing each individual property within the county. What we've got in the county that is different this time is we're looking at a neighborhood structure. There's over 200 neighborhoods that did not exist before. Essentially what that allows us to do is a sales comparison approach to valuing properties, because we all know that properties in North Cove are different from properties in Lake James, are different than properties in downtown Marion. And so that's what we've got, and that's what you've got in front of you.
Okay. Comments, questions? Mr. Wood, anything we need to do? Just
No,
receive information and we'll meet again, right?
Yes, sir. And so, just to piggyback again, the document in front of you will be Ms. Wiley's office for public inspection. There will be an advertisement either tomorrow or very soon in the McDowell News. And we are asking that the hearing be scheduled for November 29th at 6 p.m. in this room.
Okay. So we'll, at the end of tonight's meeting, we will adjourn to that day.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So Tim, thanks so much. We've got the information and we've got a lot of good material to go over and to digest and look at and read. So we look forward to seeing you again on November 29th, 5 o'clock. Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
Okay. At this time, we'll move to our 545 appointment. This is the NCDOT project scoring process. Mr. Wooten, we have Mr. Sparks with us. So do you want to lead out and then we'll turn it over to
Yes,
Mr.
very
Sparks?
briefly. Mr. Sparks asked if he could come and present some information to the board and to the community about the scoring process for NCDOT. It's a new day, and it won't steal its thunder as far as how projects are chosen now.
Okay, Mr. Sparks, good to have you tonight.
Thank
The floor is yours, sir.
I'll pass these around. These are just the copies of my slides. I make 5 copies for each one.
Thank you so much.
So my presentation is how do we fund projects? There's probably not a section of highway that doesn't impact our lives, whether it's a little secondary road, Interstate 40, US 221, NT 226. We all drive on them. We all enjoy them. So how do we fund them? How do we get these things built? And I'd like to give a presentation on that. It's brief, shouldn't take very long, but I will get right into it. Of course, my name is Stephen Sparks. I work for the Department of Transportation. I'm the Corridor Development Engineer for Division 13. Oh, yeah, all right. So how do we do it? Previous perception was a bunch of men sat in the back room with brandy and cigars, and they came up with projects. And this just is an illustration. You know, well, I'll build I-40, but I want you to fund a new road by my summer home at the beach. It wasn't that way, but it was very opaque. We didn't divulge our secrets. Our roads got funded, and just somehow money became available. We decided in, oh wait, I'm going backwards. Okay. In about 2013, we changed. We had the Strategic Investments Law, and it was the biggest change since 1989, since the Highway Trust Fund. It created a prioritization work group that provided recommendations to NCDOT on weights and criteria. So where do our projects come from? Well, they come from your long-range plans. You have a comprehensive transportation plan for McDowell County, and the City of Marion has one. And in those documents, you outline projects that you want to fund. And we work with those to try to get them to score better, to score well, and ultimately get funded through our our STIP. So where do they come from? Of course, we start with a long-range plan, and we end up with project funding in the STIP, and that process we like to call is prioritization. And I kind of like the old schoolhouse rocks things, and y'all remember the little story of a bill, how a bill wants to become a law. Well, all of the projects we put into prioritization, we want them to make it into the STIP in the same way that bill wants to become a law. And today's roadmap, of course, you see the state of North Carolina, there's 100 counties. All of them have transportation needs, just like McDowell County. We break those counties into divisions. McDowell is part of Division 13. And in prioritization, we further group them together into regions. There are 7 regions, Division 13 and 14. The westernmost divisions make up Region G. Why is that important? And because we break our projects into 3 tiers. Of course, statewide mobility. Well, in there, these are the groups that are eligible to funding. Most of your statewide mobility, think of interstates, belt lines, stuff like that, major U.S. routes. Regional impact are other USNC routes like NC 226 or US 221. And your division needs break down even further. They're more like along your secondary roads. And how does it get broken up? Well, 40% of the funds for our transportation budget go to statewide mobility. And like I said, think of I-26, I-40. That's where most of that funding is going to go. 30% of the funds go to regional impact. As I said, think US 221, NC 226. And division needs. They address basically your secondary roads, your bike ped, your transit, stuff like that. Greenways, sidewalk projects, city, county vans, stuff like that. That is addressed at the division needs. One thing to make clear is that statewide regional projects can all be funded at the division needs level if they don't get funded at the statewide level, at the tier that they're in. But that is 100% of the budget. You can see 40% goes to statewide, 30% goes to regional, and 30% goes to division. So how do we weight them? Well, at statewide mobility, it is a score that it receives all by itself. We run it through a spreadsheet. The divisions, the regions, the RPOs, MPOs have no say-so in how these projects get scored. So it just stands on a quantitative score. It's 100%. When you look at the regional impact, this is where divisions and the RPOs have some say-so. 70% of it is based off of this score, and these are the criteria. They're not all of it, but you can group them into these major group areas. And 30% then go to local input. In other words, we get to just assign it points. And essentially 100 points for the RPO, which is isothermal, which is McDowell's in, equals 15% of the project, and 100 points assigned by the division equal 15% of the other part of the project, and it scores. They're based on methodologies that they develop, but in total, 30% comes just from a score that we give it, and 70% comes from its quantitative score that is given to it by our spreadsheet in the spot office in Raleigh. And division needs go down, drill it down even further. Only 50% of the score that Raleigh assigns it is part of it. And of course, the division and the RPO that the county resides in get to make up the other 25% themselves. So half and half are just, half of it is local input. So where are we? Well, this schedule is for the 5th iteration. We call it P5.0, which prioritization is the 5th round. It's a 2-year cycle, so we're in the 5th cycle, 5th iteration of prioritization. We're at the tail end. We have assigned all of the points that we can assign. It will, at the end of the year, first of next year, a draft STIP will be released by the Board of Transportation. It will be voted, and hopefully sometime around January, February of next year, it will become the new Transportation Improvement Program, and it is a 10-year document. And like I said, we're at the finish line. It's a 10-year document. It includes, as I said, it includes everything that I just discussed. There are other projects that make it up, but they're maintenance and safety that are just not part of the way we score things. They are separate to themselves. It is about 55% of the total budget for transportation, Department of Transportation. And again, it is finally, it is approved by the Board of Trustees, or the Board of Transportation. And this is my contact information. If you have any questions, if there's a road or project that you think needs to be developed, call me. This is what I'm here for, is to help McDowell County get projects that'll make it into the STIP. And I'll look forward to
So anybody needs a road paved, they can write your number down and come to this, right?
No, you probably can't get a road paved, but if you have a question, by all means, give me a call. But it's if there is a project.
A lot of times we get, people think the commissioners can just make a call and get your road paved. It don't work that way, does it?
It does not work that way. There is actually a formula that the Highway Department uses to fund countywide resurfacing. It's not just, hey, can I get it paved? They have a program, they have a priority of roads, they go through those every year, and the road just happens to come up for that year. A lot of it's based on funding, just like the STIP. The STIP's a living document. It's based on how much funding we have available to get those projects.
Well, one question that I know I get a lot, and I'm sure the commissioners do too, when there's a repaving project, what determines who gets the nice, smooth surface, or the what I call the road chat, the gravel, the paved gravel?
Typically, your high volume roads, the ones that get a lot of your U.S. routes, where the traffic's exceptionally high, they will typically get hot mix pavement. Your secondary roads are typically going to receive the chat if they don't have a lot of volume. We're talking like a dead end road. If it's a connector and it, again, it receives a lot of traffic, it may get hot mix paving. But typically your US and NC routes are always going to get hot mix asphalt. Dead end secondary roads, especially if they're not very long or have very low volume, are we going to receive that chat, the tar and gravel? We call that asphalt surface treatment. Some of your very lightly traveled 2-lane US and NC routes might get that. It's not guaranteed, but they might get that.
Well, another question, I actually made a call on this one. When they go in a secondary road and they use the chat, and they don't strike back, and I called to inquire on behalf of someone about that, and they said that the answer we got back was there are not some secondary roads that I guess are not high volume, they're not actually going back and striping, right?
Yes, if it's, now again, this is, I'm not 100% up on this policy, but working in construction for the previous years, if it's, I think it's a dead-end road and it's less than a mile in length, and if it's narrow, I mean, if it's 20 foot wide, obviously, maybe, but if you've got like an 18 foot wide road where you might have 7 foot lanes, 7.5 foot lanes, we are not striping them back. That is, as I recall, I think that was a division policy. But that would be something you might want to talk with Chris Guffey about. He's going to be a little bit more knowledgeable on that than I am. But yes, there are some roads, if they're small, if they're dead end and not less than a mile in length, those are candidates where we will not strike. We may not strike them back.
Okay. All right, other comments, questions?
I get a lot of calls and complaints about the needed guardrails in some of the areas up there. There's one area in particular out next to me, the Lytle Mountain area. There's a lot of accidents there. There's a, matter of fact, it's on the Henry McCall Road.
I got a call on that just last week.
I get lots of calls on that, but it's on Henry McCall Road off of Lytle Mountain Road. And there's a big gorge there, and there's several people that have, the only thing that saves them from falling 200 feet straight down are the trees. So that's a problem area there, and I would really like to see the state putting guardrail there.
Okay. I will contact Chris Guffey, the district engineer, and see about that. That is, it's not something I was aware of, but I will be glad to reach out to him and see what his thoughts are, see where any of that, anything like that would stand.
Thank you.
Okay, other comments, questions from Mr. Sparks?
226A on there too.
NC 226A,
There's another one.
I will be happy to.
Anything else?
Just reach out and touch the
We reach out to the creek.
All right, Mrs. Sparks, thanks so much for the presentation and enlightening us on the project scoring process. It's always good to have an update and
I've got one
information.
more question.
Yes,
I want you to correct this, please, but several years ago, I talked to an engineer from Buncombe County. He was a state engineer from Buncombe County, and it was over a guardrail issue. And he told me that unless someone had gotten killed there as a result of meeting the guardrail, they would not put one up. Is that the policy for the state?
I would hope that it's not. That's extreme. That's extreme. I would think if you have a lot of lane departures where people are actually falling, leaving the lane and maybe hitting an obstacle, anything like that, that's typically the threshold of whether we need guardrail. If you have just people running off the road. Now, if it's one isolated incident, you may not have as great a need, but if it's an area in which you are having this constant problem, yes. Somebody dying, no, I don't believe that's, I really don't believe that's the case.
Okay, anything else? All right, Mr. Sparks, thanks so much for spending some time with us tonight, and we'll get a wonderful evening.
You too. Thank you all.
Thanks so much. All right, this time we have a 6 o'clock appointment. We have Mr. Danny Hampton with us and with Freedom Life Ministries. So Danny, I know you got some board members here too. So if you want to introduce who's with you, and we'll turn the floor over to you, my friend.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. Appreciate what y'all do. I come bearing gifts. And I'll get this.
Take bribes, Dad.
The county attorney will clear anything we receive. Okay? Thanks, Bill. Keep messing up.
Oops.
While Danny's passing this out, he had a event just this past week, and what a great event it was. For those watching, Freedom Life Ministries is an external group that the county funds at $4,500 per year currently. And Danny will tell you all about the McDowell County Reentry Policy Council. So we'll turn it over to him when he gets done.
Thank you again. It is a privilege to be here, and I'm really here to your need, questions that you may have. I'm very excited about our county. I think there's a tremendous amount of positive that's going on. There's a tremendous amount of collaborative work that is going on. As I mentioned, I believe at the event you just spoke of, McDowell is starting to become noticed across the state for some of the collaborative work that we're doing, and getting on the map for good reasons. And we have a couple of big initiatives that are going on right now. One, that, as you may or may not know, Freedom Life has been involved in substance use work since we first started. In our first year of operations, we realized 80 to 90% of our clients were dealing with addiction, substance misuse issues. And so I was trying to figure out now how do you work this, and just found that it was extremely difficult to try to get any help for our clients. And so I joined at that time with the Health Coalition and some of the work that they were doing in a substance use work group. And since then, we've been working, partnered with them. We've been the primary sponsor for the last couple of years for the recovery rallies that have been held downtown. They've been highly successful in working with the Health Coalition on those and several other agencies. And all of that has kind of got KB Reynolds' attention in a significant way. We were in a meeting with KB Reynolds last year and last summer, discussing the immediate needs versus long-term needs, and how to stop the bleeding in the streets, but also how to get to the underlying root issues that's creating the bleeding. Because it's interesting, I was watching even yesterday a report on burnout, and one of the things they said is burnout is created when you're constantly dealing with the tyranny of the urgent and never making any progress into what's creating the tyranny of the urgent. And so, how to begin to get to our county's underroot areas. And so KB was part of that discussion, and so they came back to us this year, and they have now started an initiative. We actually have a first meeting in December where they are hiring, or have probably by now already hired, UNCA as an institution to come in and for the next 3 years do an intensive research project in our county, in our community, along with the substance use work group. And we're bringing reentry into that equation because reentry is another contributing dynamic. And so for 3 years, we're going to be doing deep research in our community and doing strategic development. So by the end of those 3 years, our goal is that we will have a 5-year strategic plan on how to overcome the substance use issues in our community and make serious inroads into that. On top of that, we just launched a reentry council for McDowell County. We've had an executive committee that's actually been meeting for the last year and beginning to put together a framework because as a reentry organization, Freedom Life, there's a lot we can do, but there's a whole lot we can't. A single organization is not the solution to the need. We can certainly drive it, we can certainly champion, as it were, the need, but no single organization is going to be able to address the complex needs that reentry brings from many different aspects, from the spiritual to the practical to the physical to the addiction to the mental health to the housing to the stigma. I mean, there's just tons and tons of needs. And so what we're seeking to now do, if I may do the larger framework, and then I'm going to call your attention to what I handed out to you, is we've established now McDowell County Reentry Council. In our Reentry Council meeting, we had 72 people that were there representing, in that meeting, over 45 different agencies. We already have close to 60 that have committed to being a part of it. And what we're going to be doing through this council is we're going to be identifying from the community to the individual and the family need barriers that are countywide barriers like housing and barriers like addiction and stigma and transportation, employment, all of these things that a single individual agency trying to help an individual and a family, if as a community we're not helping to address these larger issues, then we're just hitting walls. And you know what something does when it hits a wall, right? It recoils back to where it's been. Recoils back to where it's been. So in a nutshell, what we, and I really believe we're going to be able to do this, what we are hoping to achieve through the McDowell Reentry Council is to start addressing these barriers in a very serious, a very long-term trajectory, long-term goal way, to be able to, in 5, 10 years, 15 years, to be able to see all of these barriers overcome in our county. And to do that, it is going to take a massive countywide effort. And so how does the council work, and how is the council going to get to that? Well, let me answer that in 2 parts. First of all, I call your attention to the handout I gave you. You can see the model on the front of how the full Reentry Council works. There's different components. There's the local Reentry Council, which is the larger council. Like I said, we had our first full council meeting a couple of weeks ago. 72 people were there. We have the executive committee, which is kind of the steering group for the council and also the liaison group to work between Freedom Life as the primary reentry agency in the community, working in meeting with the executive committee and also then through the executive committee facilitating the full reentry council meetings. So you now have different layers of implementation process. So
Danny, for those watching, they may not understand what the reentry. Explain that.
What reentry is, Reentry is men and women in our community who have faced incarceration returning and seeking to reintegrate into the community from incarceration. We also include in our reentry work anyone who has faced probation, anyone who has faced incarceration, or anyone who may be off of that but have a criminal record and are still having difficulties in their lives overcoming the effects of that criminal record and being able to take their lives into a positive new direction that's sustainable. So that's, I appreciate you calling that to my attention. Yes.
One other thing, Dan, too,
yes.
I think it would be good to mention, and you mentioned it the other day, the taxpayer spends about, $32,000, $33,000 a year on each individual while they are in
Yes, the average is $30,000. And I believe, and I know Brenda, you may know this, it's 29 or 30 for the local jail too.
I believe it's around 32.
It's right around
Also.
30, yeah. And so that's an average means. It depends on the level of security. The higher the level of security, the higher the cost per individual. So yeah, but it's $30,000 per year.
And that's if they don't have catastrophic medical issues
Right.
while they're housed or
Which the county thinks
returning
that
back.
bad.
Yes.
Yes. So you could be literally looking, I know in one client's case, over $100,000 in 1 year.
Point is,
Yeah.
what this organization is doing is keeping a lot of those guys from going back.
From going back.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, we're really blessed to see the state average for recidivism is right around 45 to 47%, depending on the model you use. Our average for our level 3 clients is 7. So it works.
Let me
Yes.
just say how much I appreciate what you're doing, and Brenda's gonna relate to what I'm fixing to say. 19 years with the sheriff's office, and Brenda was there working in the jail long before I came along. But let's say that we've got, and I want folks in the county to really understand this and why that what you're doing is so important. Let's say a young man or a young woman gets in trouble, commits a felony. They face that. They do 3 months, 6 months, whatever. Every application for school, for a job, whatever they try to do, they have to put down that they're a convicted felon. Their application goes to the bottom of the pile. We as a society won't let them go any farther and overcome that because of it. Now, here's something else. They're not all gonna do it. They're not all gonna take advantage of it. That's the reality of the thing. But if your program can save one, it's worth every dime we can spend. We've got small businesses in McDowell County that will hire, okay? A lot of the larger ones may not. I can't speak to that, but I know for a fact that we have small businesses in McDowell County that will hire and give these folks an opportunity and a chance to overcome that. What happens is, and I know because I arrested the same ones over and over, when they have to put on their application that they're a convicted felon, it stops right there. They don't have a chance.
Yes.
So we create that by not helping them overcome that. What you're doing is so important.
Well, thank you very much. And that's also what we're doing as a community is so important, because that's why the Reentry Council is so important, because one of the things we're going to be doing is we've got several business leaders as part of our Reentry Council. So guess what in January they're going to start doing? Half of our meeting is going to be spent on getting groups of people together around barriers like employment, housing, and then coming up with legitimate strategies of how to begin to find out what businesses will hire, what businesses won't hire. For the businesses that won't hire, what can we do to help them, encourage them? What are some of the let's just say, win-win solutions? Because they're scared. You know, we're going to hire somebody, they're going to turn around and cost us money. And so what can we do to help relieve that on their end? And what can they do to come to the need of our clients, of men and women who face incarceration? And there's a whole lot of potential. So beginning to look at the challenges, to address them, to see what they are, and then to develop strategic solutions that can be win-win on both sides. Because imagine, we're seeing amazing success right now, just as an agency working in networked relationship with the community partners. Imagine what we're going to do when we're actually working together in strategic development and strategic implementation as an entire county on these issues. The potential of it is going to be absolutely amazing. And one of the things that we don't think about is when we help this man or this woman, now their lives become transformed. And now guess what happens to their kids? I heard a statistic the other day. When there is a parent in prison, there's a 600% chance that the kid will go there too. Because of the nature of what it does to the family dynamic when that child is grown up. But the opposite is also true. We have seen it over and over and over again. When you help change the life of that parent, you have now changed the trajectory of that child in many, many other cases. And so we are dealing with family dynamic, we're dealing with county community dynamic, we're dealing with individual need dynamic, we're dealing with economics, because we can work all day to develop a strong economic plan, but if the workforce is unhealthy, how strong is that economic plan going to be? And I'm not diminishing, we need to be developing the economic plans, but we also need to be working on the social solutions that need to be addressed. They've got to be addressed, and that's why I'm so excited with kind of the two-front attack that we're making now with the substance use work that now is going on, and KP Reynolds coming in with that is going to totally change the entire way that McDowell County is going to be treating and approaching the whole substance use problem that we have as a county. And you take that in combination with the reentry work that we're doing, which is another huge, I don't have to tell y'all, I mean, you see it, you deal with a lot of the consequences of it, financially as well as other ways. And as any officer would tell you, Chief Lawrence or Sheriff Buchanan, they'll tell you, you can't arrest your way out of this. There's got to be countywide effort, countywide organization, countywide strategy, and countywide implementation. We now have that. For the first time since I've been here, we now have organization established to begin to generate the kind of momentum and the kind of solution-oriented implementation that can seriously begin to change the dynamic of these roles in our county. And that's why we're so excited. I know I'm out of time, so I'll just call your attention.
Danny, to highlight what you're doing here, you're coming at it from a faith-based perspective.
Yes.
And you can try to reform, but unless the heart is changed, you're not going to make a lot of headway.
Absolutely.
So let's get to the core of it. It's the heart.
Yes.
Condition.
Yeah, I serve on the Economic Development Committee, and one of the big issues with bringing more jobs into the county is the need to fill those jobs, and we have got to qualify these people.
Yes.
And that's a big issue.
Yeah. And that's why we need to work with business leaders, to work with government leaders, to work and address, it doesn't do any good to live in denial. That's what we teach our clients every day. Denial will only get you destroyed. So even as a community, we've got to be willing to face whatever it is, identify whatever it is that we need to address, and then develop strategic solutions to go after it. To your point, I happen to believe that God loves this county. And he loves the people in this county. And I know that God is very creative, and he can come up with all kinds of good solutions if we're willing to work together and help him to let him reveal that stuff. And so I appreciate the time that you've given us today to talk about the Reentry Council model, to talk about Freedom Life and what we do. It's pretty complex, you can see, but we have the whole plan. It's laid out in front of y'all. Y'all are welcome to take this, look over it, and I'm just excited that you are behind this, because I really do believe, I've said it, and I probably put my foot in my mouth many times, I'm good at that, but I believe in 5 years we're already going to see a big change in our county. And there's no telling in 10 to 15 years if we can stay on track, if we can stay committed to the journey. This is a marathon, this is not a sprint. If we can stay committed to the long haul of the journey, I believe there are incredible days ahead for our community.
And this is the first in the state, isn't it?
What's that?
This is the first program like this in the state, isn't it?
Well, that's an interesting question. It's the first of the way we're doing it, yes. There are 15 other counties that have reentry councils. There's only one county doing it the way we're doing it, and that's us. With the faith-based component, with the biggest difference is most reentry councils are set up to try to get people, transition them from incarceration to a job, to housing, to kind of a stabilized place, and then you release them and let them go. We're committed to life change. We're not just trying to help a person, which we do, transition and reintegrate back into the community. We address all of their needs in that regard. Last year alone, we gave out over $63,000 in financial help to food, clothing, housing, shelter, all kinds of needs like that to help them. But then we also work with our clients for up to 3 years in mentoring, discipling, walking with them, helping them make sure that they're getting the counseling they need, the mental health treatment they need, and doing it in a sustained way. And that's the difference. That's because the problem is, they even came out with an article a couple of years ago that said just trying to get somebody a job when they're reentering the community is not the solution. If anything, statistics show that you're just helping them get money back in their pocket to go do what they've always done. And so you've got to address the entire person, the entire need, spirit, soul, body, the entire mental health, addictive health, all of it. It all has to be addressed at one time. And that's what
Danny, you organize anybody that's with you?
Yes, we have several of our board members here today. Bill Warren, Roxanne Wetzel, Marlene Hoke, Mr. John Webster, Anthony Collins. Did I miss anybody? Okay. They're some of our board members that wanted to come in tonight and just also show their support.
Okay, great, thanks. Great.
For the people watching, if you'll go to their website, you can see success there too, because you have people there that have successfully maneuvered through your program, and they are now successful, viable people in our community. They're not going back to jail.
Right, and we have like, you can see testimonies on our Facebook page. One example, a single mom who lost her kids, literally lost custody of her kids. They tested meth positive. She was, arrested. She came out. Now she's a single mother. She got her kids back. She's stating her life. She is non-governmental dependent in any way. She is living a self-sustaining life in a very successful way with her children. I mean, that's just the example of working with that.
It works.
While you're right there, I had the opportunity to meet a young lady the other day that I had dealt with probably 10 years ago, I guess. But she's been through the trouble. I won't call her names. But I did not recognize her. I would have then, but I didn't recognize her last week or 2 weeks ago.
Wow.
That much of a change. So it's working.
It works.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We also have a voice for the first time ever on the state level.
Yes, we are partnered with the governor has started a new collaborative called the State Reentry Council Collaborative. The state is getting very serious about this. That's why the timing is right for everything that's happening. And the governor himself has sit in on it. His staff has sit in on it. The top leaders from across the state in different areas, Health and Human Services, Community College System, DMV, and are sitting around the table, and guess what? So is McDowell County. And they're making 30 different recommendations to the state legislature this year. We've been working for a year. Next year we're going into the implementation stage. There's a whole lot that's being done right now across the state and within our county. And that's why I'm saying, I mean, if I may wax biblical, the fields are white. And God is on the move. So I appreciate it.
Well, our board's excited about what's taking place here in McDowell County because we spend a lot of money. We spend a lot of taxpayer money on a new courtroom, $6 million on the whole project. Had to increase our DSS foster parents amount we spend there because of so many kids coming into custody. I mean, you take a pick, probation, parole.
Just had an expansion on the jail.
And jail expansion,
Right.
Probation and parole is adding members and needs more space. I mean, we can just sit here and just keep naming and naming. We won't for time's sake, but we've got to stop it. And you're doing the right, you've got the right approach, and our board's behind your group 100%.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It is. Our motto is it takes a community working together to make a difference. And we appreciate so much the leadership that y'all are giving and the support that you are giving. And I'm excited. I think we have some very good days ahead of us. They're going to be hard. They're going to be some tough days, but they're going to be good days. Thank you. Appreciate it very much.
Danny, thanks so much. And thank you board members for being here tonight too. Okay, let's move to our next appointment. That is the 615. This is the strategic. So fitting to come right behind that presentation with the strategic employment plan. We're going to have a discussion about that, and Chuck Abernathy is here somewhere in the building. I saw him in the hallway, and I think Jerry Broom is present with him. So Chuck, come on in. Let's talk about the employment strategic plan that y'all have been working on. And I'll just say this: we have got record low unemployment now in McDowell County, 2.5%, historical. The only county with less, with a lower unemployment rate is Buncombe County. So listen, it takes a group from the state level to the local level, everybody working together. Jerry's crowd, so we're excited about what's going on. So Chuck, the floor is yours.
Okay, well, this will segue from your previous presentation. A lot of this will overlap. As Mr. Walker said, the McDowell County's unemployment rate is the second lowest in the state with 2.5%. When companies consider expanding or new companies consider locating, in the past, labor was not necessarily a top question. It is now the question. How are you going to provide me with the people that I need in order to do the function that I'm wanting to do? We started dealing with this over a year ago, so we're in front of it. Don't let people tell you that we're behind or not in tune with what's going on. What you're getting ready to receive as information has been worked on for well over a year. I've got with me Jerry Broom, who will help. Jerry and I guess kind of initiated the whole discussion on a snowy day at the Universal building where we were the only two in the building, and we're frustrated and talking, and it kind of gave birth to this. Brandon is with your Council of Government, and they were instrumental and I think are key to this thing not being a study that goes on the shelf, but something that becomes action. And your Council of Governments can be low key and not always real high profile, but they're here. They were central on this and were a big help. So the theme here is you can't fix what you don't understand. It was amazing the lack of information that existed in relationship to the workforce. Jerry, I'm going to have you start, if you would.
Okay. Thanks, guys, for having us. Time is not going to be our friend tonight, so we're going to move as fast as we can. Cheryl, if you'll hit that next one, please.
It's right there beside you. That.
Oh, so I'm going to hit it. Okay. What do I?
If I hit this arrow, will it?
Yes, it should hit
Show
too.
me what I'm doing here.
Oh, I got you.
There it is. There it is.
I got you.
Again, I'm not going to go through. I think you guys have this slide, but we were, again, Chuck kind of told kind of what happened, because we were about a year and a half ago, we were in a spot where a lot of our industry was wanting to expand. They were looking for people, couldn't find them. And I think it was somebody was looking at coming to McDowell, and I looked at Chuck. I said, Chuck, where are we going to get these folks from? And one thing led to another, and we decided we were going to take a deeper dive into the folks that were unemployed, and we're going to do that right now. But a couple of things that we're proud of. Of course, the Pipeline Committee has been going on since 2013, and I'll mention the high school pre-apprenticeship program, the high school counselor day. We have, I think, better probably than any county in the state, have come back and partnered with our local school system. I mean, you guys know we had, what, 400 some graduates. That's going to solve a problem when we work with that, and we'll talk more about it. I think Chuck had to move on. He just moved the slide.
Okay, so we're gonna rush. This is really, I think, going to be of interest to you. So this puts out schematically what we did. You've got a county population in McDowell of around 46,000 people. Just under 21,000 are in the workforce. If you're working 1 hour for pay, you're classified as being in the workforce. The non-workforce outnumbers those in the workforce. We started asking the question: who are the people? Who are the aggregate groups, the buckets, if you will, that are not in the workforce? Who are they? What do they look like? What's causing them to be not in the workforce? And there are many that are not in the workforce that are completely valid. There's nothing wrong if you're in elementary school not being in the workforce, or if you're 70 years of age and retired not being in the workforce, or if you're disabled not being in the workforce. But who are they? And what do we know about them? And why are they not in the workforce? So what we did is gained an understanding that there's not good information and understanding on this anywhere in North Carolina, or for that matter beyond. So one of the things that what you're getting ready to see does is it will use information to lay out who are the groups of people that are not in the workforce and why, which was a goal to create good information so that we understand what we're dealing with. People didn't know the answer to this information. Then who are the agencies that are paid and responsible for trying to help people gain meaningful employment, and what is their role? What this study did is it interviewed, and it basically went through a process of determining what they're doing and what the agency's thoughts were, and you're going to see what those are. Then when you get into the workforce, what about moving people ahead that are already there? What about someone that's classified as being in the workforce that works 10 hours a week at McDonald's or a fast food company that may want to advance and do something different? So how are we moving people ahead that are classified as being in the workforce? It's really, I think you're going to like what you're getting ready to see.
And just one interesting nugget, and this will be something if you want to look at it, but we thought, okay, this is going to be something that we can look around and find a template for. Not only was there not a template in the state of North Carolina, we found 3 of these in the United States. So, and really they weren't talking about some of the things that we wanted to talk about, so we really basically did start from scratch. But if you ever want to go back and look at those, and I would just tell you, if you can't sleep one night, I'd open one up and read it. It's not going to be a novel.
Okay, Frank?
All right, so again, I'm Brandon Roop. So the real meat and potatoes, kind of what really led the discussion here was the data. So we pulled a lot of different data. A lot of it was coming from the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and we extrapolated it down to the McDowell County level. And so just to put it on the record, the unemployment rate is a percentage of the unemployed population of McDowell over the total number of employed and unemployed persons. So that does not include these 23,796 people that are considered not in the workforce. So that's a huge population of potential untapped labor market potential that we're not reaching via our efforts, current efforts. And we just kind of broke this number down right here, the not in the workforce population. So of that, not in the workforce, 7,300 people are over the age of 65, not in the workforce. That's a potential over or retired population that could be tapped into to maybe be brought back in and partner. And I won't get too far into that. We have specific recommendations based on these, but so I'll kind of keep it brief on that. But just to kind of point out some of these real interesting figures. There are roughly 1,700 individuals that are between the ages of 25 and 64 that are not in the workforce due to home responsibilities. And home responsibilities are categorized as things such as, think of a single mother who has a child, and that's her barrier to employment. She has to stay home and take care of her child. She can't work because she's at home taking care of that child. If daycare could be improved, maybe she could go to work. Or if you think of a person who has a mentally handicapped family member, or someone who has a disabled family member or an older family member, that could be somebody who isn't working due to home responsibilities. A real huge one for us was the 715 individuals between the ages of 16 and 24 who are not working and are not pursuing a degree in school. So they are supposedly sitting home doing nothing, living in parents' basement. So that's a huge, that seems like low-hanging fruit if we can target those people and try to transition them to go to school, enter the workforce, or potentially the military to give them some kind of direction in life. That's a huge number right there. And we have a population that would be hard, but vocational rehab may be able to help us with some of the individuals who are not participating in the workforce due to illness or disability. And then, and so kind of an overall, if you take out all the people who are employed, unemployed, we have about 28 people who are between the ages 25 and 64 and not participating in the workforce. That means they haven't looked for work and they're not planning on looking for work anytime soon. So how do we reach those people and try to convince them that there are opportunities for them here in McDowell County? And so we also wanted to take a closer look at these these individuals employed. So the employed population also includes part-time workers. So we have our full-time population, our population of the employed people who work full-time, they work 40 hours a week. But then there's a large percentage of these that are working part-time. And you see here we have about 657 individuals that are working part-time and desire to work full-time. So maybe they don't have the proper education to move into the workforce, or maybe they don't have the right credential to move into a well-paying job and they're stuck working part-time in retail. So how do we help those individuals transition? We do have a population that are working part-time by choice, but maybe with the right flexible schedule and things, they could be convinced to work full-time as well. And we also have a large population, 18-25 individuals fit the definition of the working poor. So that means that they are below the 100% poverty guidelines, so that they're the working poor, and we can help them transition into better employment opportunities that exist in McDowell County where they can be making a livable wage. And then we also have a large population, 4,884, that work outside of McDowell County. Of course, there are migration patterns that probably negate that somewhat, but that seems like a pretty good target audience as well, to try to capture those people and convince them to come back to McDowell County. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
So with that series of demographics, this county understands its workforce and its non-workforce better than any county in the state of North Carolina. No one has broken it out and explained it in that manner. There were 4 major recommendations that resulted. I think if you guessed what recommendations we would come up with, these are kind of 4 obvious ones. These are 4 that are very large, difficult to tackle in some respects, but this is the result of what we heard from surveying companies, surveying individuals, the community forums that we held, etc. Transportation is an issue, and we are poised with the county's new transportation department to address that, and Randall and Ashley have been, and others have been working with us on that. Childcare is an issue. We met with DSS. That's a large problem, but childcare, the lack thereof, is an issue. Workforce migration. You saw that over 4,000 leave the county. Less, I think it's around 3 migrate into the county. But we've already come up with what the cost is to drive 60 miles each way, and it's $6,000 to $7,000 a year, not even counting the impact on your vehicle. Just a true cost. So a marketing campaign to show what that cost is, even if you're working for the same dollars or a little less, might work. And what are those 700 people between the ages of 16 and 24 doing that are not working and not in school? Perhaps substance abuse is a good guess on what the issue is. So clearly drug abuse and the impediment that creates is an issue for people not entering the workforce. So those are 4 major items. We also held focus groups and meetings with specific agencies, so we're not going to be able to hit all of them, but we're going to hit some of them.
Okay, real quickly, again, I mentioned our partnership with the county schools, but I did want to mention a couple of things here. That first one, increased student awareness with virtual tours and employer materials. You know, sometimes these kids just don't know. I mean, Baxter's somewhere on your right as you drive by. If you don't know more, if you've never been on a tour, you don't know anything about the possibilities inside those doors. Increased parent involvement. Of course, parents are obviously key in a lot of this, but this goes back to, and I know I've shared this before, the aviation company at Greensboro, who now does their recruiting in middle school. They actually start in the 8th grade looking for their workforce, and that includes the parents, and that's a big thing. This is not honor graduates, that is honor the graduates that enter the military and the workforce. You know, sometimes we make a big deal about somebody that gets a scholarship and goes off to a 4-year school, as we should, but we also should be doing some of this here when they go straight into the workforce. This was a real interesting one. Provide interest and aptitude assessments. You know, when we try to help companies fill their needs for mechanics and maintenance people, you know, there's a gift that a kid has, and what we're trying to do is figure out how to let them know that they do have a gift. What we find out a lot of times is, and we hear this anecdotally from employers, and they ask the questions to to the kids. Tell us a little bit about your mechanical ability. Did you do thus or so? Yeah, I took my mother's vacuum cleaner apart when I was 7 years old because I was curious. Another one I heard not too long ago, they have identified that kids that like to play with Legos are that engineering type, that person that likes to take things apart, put it back together. Those are the kind of things, because I'm telling you, I've said this a lot, you're doing a young man, young lady a service if you tell them that they have a gift. And you're actually doing their parents Wally a favor if you tell them they have a gift. Because as we've talked about before, a lot of companies will pay for that further education. There's lots of examples of that. We want to do more with non-traditional jobs, both to males and females, and to increase the knowledge of local employers by incorporating employer information into classes. That seems like it's a small thing, but that could be huge. Real quickly with McDowell Tech, again, McDowell Techs are really well-kept secret a lot of times. I don't think a lot of people understand what's offered down there, the short-term training that can be parlayed into a job rather quickly, and that goes into the second bullet there. And tech's willingness to have flexible schedules to allow for the 12-hour shift. Because if you think about going back to school and working a rotating 12-hour shift, that's hard to do, because typically you work a 3-4, 4-3, so you're not off the same time every week. And then these pre-hire classes that are going on at the Ford Miller Center, NC Works, those are still going on and will continue to go on.
Okay, so we met with DSS, and so a couple of these are internal to your own agencies here. As you guys understand, and ladies understand, what DSS does is heavily federal and state regulated. Never been one to throw our hands up though and say that that's something we can't deal with. So a legislative agenda that replaces regulatory barriers that incentivize workforce participation as opposed to incentivizing not working.
Amen.
The DSS staff put it out real straight. You get them in here and talk to them and they'll tell you that what we're doing is incentivizing non-participation in the workforce. It's real popular to beat this program up and not be positive about it, but that's what we heard. There's a lot of good things that happen there. But the returning to work is not something that permeates everybody's thinking in the processes that they undertake. Many of the programs are self-reporting, meaning a DSS worker may look on Facebook and see that a client is saying one thing on Facebook and saying another when they come in and apply for benefits, and the whole system is built on self-reporting and not really analyzing or assessing what the fact may actually be. In other words, it's just not functioning necessarily like it needs to. There needs to be strong partnerships with workforce development programs and with educational initiatives. What we would like to do on this is have, and I know your Association of County Commissioners legislative process has gotten by, but we've got specific goals that we would like to have you adopt, and then have you and county staff present to your legislative, Mr. Dobson and Senator Heiss and others, in an effort to begin chipping away at this and trying to change it. But Lisa's been very, very helpful. And it is a problem. Senior Center, this was a great meeting as well, and pretty well focused on the idea of a return to work program. You saw the numbers. There's thousands of people that are over the age of 65 that might consider returning to work if the schedule was favorable and if the pay was favorable and the conditions favorable. Employers are going to have to change how they look at things perhaps. But the Senior Center was very interested in exploring a return to work program. So instead of companies fighting over those 500 people that are in the unemployment category, what we're showing you is where there are thousands of people that we just need to go after and try to figure out a strategy for dealing with. probation and parole. I won't throw numbers out, but with real detail, but a significant number of individuals on probation and parole do not work full-time. Could the court system and the probation and parole system incentivize work in the sentencing? To some degree that's happening, but could they incentivize work and make it part of the sentence? And I think it's a question that you're in a better position to ask than we are. But the majority of the individuals on probation and parole do not have full-time jobs. And there are about a little over 800 of those people.
All right, and Jerry alluded to our NC Works Training Center. So NC Works is formerly known as the Job Link Center, and most people still call it the Unemployment Office, even though they have no direct ties to unemployment benefit insurance anymore. So, and of course, that's one of our strategies, is to find a way to more effectively market that. We need to push that NC Works brand out there and get people to realize that we have jobs available for them to apply for. We need to also get our frontline staff, people who actually are trying to help these people find jobs, out to the companies that are providing the jobs. This will help them draw a big connection between that person's work skill set and the actual company that they're trying to send that person to work for. We also want to try to continue to invite employers from different pathways to market those jobs to the center staff and then to the individuals who are applying for work. And
Gotcha.
Yeah. And so then we have a couple of recommendations for the actual employers in McDowell County too. And I believe Jerry has made some strides in making this first one happen. On the Go to McDowell website, there are videos that can be watched that kind of provide some virtual tours of companies, but kind of expanding upon that and allowing people to visit companies without actually having to go there on site. Another big problem you hear is that people don't leave a company, they leave a supervisor. They quit because they got mad at their boss. They didn't quit because they didn't like the pay or the hours or anything. Sometimes it's just conflict within work. And a lot of times that rises from employees that are really good at being a machine operator rise to a supervisor level. Even though they've never had any training on how to be a supervisor, they know how to be a machine operator. And so there tends to be some conflict there. So effectively training the employers, employees to have that management skill set is a big reason. And then of course just keeping track of why people are leaving your organization is a big way to potentially increase retention and reduce turnover.
So the employers are not off the hook. There are many great places to work and many companies that treat employees very well. But one of the things we heard is that there were some employers that could do better and that could sharpen their management skills, and that there's enough here to go around for everybody, and that the employers needed to look at how they're treating people, and they needed to look at the flexibility of their hiring practices. And you heard that just earlier from Mr. Danny Freeman about hiring convicted felons, or hiring someone that maybe has a family member working for the, there's going to have to be a little more flexibility, perhaps, on some people's part. So what's next? We've got a study this thing's 60 pages long. It will be online. I'd recommend that you read the executive summary. It is a bear of a document to look through, but we've got it. It'll be online by the end of the month. It can go on the shelf, metaphorically, or we can implement it. And again, some of the low-hanging fruit we can do through agencies. But what I told Brandon, we'll go put him and his group on the spot here, and I'm not sure which commissioner is on the Regency board, but Regency is pursuing hiring an implementer for this. In other words, somebody that would be responsible for taking these recommendations and implementing them. Second thing is, can you imagine these numbers in all 100 counties? So that what McDowell County could do is pull numbers up for Mitchell, Yancey, Avery, Buncombe, Rutherford, and Burke. And now we've got hundreds of thousands of people that we're able to analyze and understand what's going on in the workforce. So really the key is to have every county do this, and we're going to be trying to get that done. Questions?
I'm sorry, can I just add one thing real quickly? You know, I don't know that we gave isothermal planning the proper shout out. They paid for 6 months of this study. We actually hired somebody to work part-time because this became something that nobody could go away from their regular job to do. So they paid for that for 6 months. And again, I've got about 3 weeks and I'm going to be done. Mr. Brandon sitting here to my left is going to be one of my replacements, probably the primary one initially. But through the Region C Workforce Development Board and Isothermal Planning and Development Commission, we hope to follow up with some money to, because you know, we're not marketing experts. We're going to need somebody to, because when you talk about reaching those 16 to 24-year-olds that are not working and not in school, I mean, we think we know where they are, but we're not 100% sure. We need some help in trying to identify them and their parents. And again, that's just one of the low-hanging fruits that we're talking about.
This study is an eye-opener. What can we do moving forward? Chuck, is there a, you know, just here again, the spirit of cooperation and collaboration is everywhere in McDowell County. What can we do we have the data, let's do something with the data.
Forgive me for this, okay? Brandon, I'd ask Region C to come in and give you a report on how the workforce board would fund it. And I really think that's where we are, without a person to do this. And again, bits and pieces of it can be assigned out. But really what we need is somebody that's going to take this. You would not believe the work that went into this. And really you're pursuing with Region C, I think, who again has been tremendous at paying for this and being a partner and doing the work. And they're supporting what we're wanting. But you know, I think maybe for you to impress on them the importance of it, if you see so.
So what's the step we need to take to try to impress upon them the importance of the information that we received tonight moving forward? Chuck, you guys going to
I'm on the isothermal board, and so is Commissioner Vaughn, so that's a head start maybe on pushing. I don't think it's a hard push. I think it's just resources there. But,
well, I'll entertain a motion that we go ahead and go ahead.
And just to that point, we are currently going to pursue a grant through the Department of Commerce. It's called the Workforce Innovation Opportunity Act Enhancement Grant. And so we're going to pursue that grant and with this application and try to pursue dollars to hire a staff person to continue to pursue this. So we are actively trying to get some money. But any support that we could get, whether it be a letter of intent or maybe even some financial support in hiring this person, would go a long way in our grant application. So we'd be happy to work with the county in writing that application to get that person in here.
So by consensus, or do I need a motion to go ahead and petition, as it looks like we're moving in that direction, but just to reiterate that we fully support and are requesting that to happen?
we can do a letter of support, that's okay.
And then actually where there's DSS or senior center, you guys can advocate for those kinds of things.
Some of the DSS legislative goals, I think that was in some of what you put forward in this year's process, but I'm sure there's more to go in it.
Okay, so in summary, we're going to have staff write a letter of support regarding the position that the Workforce Region C is trying to get funding for, correct? Is that right?
We'll get all that.
Gotcha. All right, sounds good. Great information, Matt.
Thank you.
That is really breaking down the population of McDowell County and what's going on. That's just really great. Thank you.
Thank you for hearing.
Okay, let's move to our next item. Thank you, Jerry. And Jerry, listen, you've been in this room many times, so we will miss seeing you come in.
Thank you.
So, enjoy your time.
Thank you.
Let's move to item A under old business. This is the Vita Alice's lease request. Mr. Wood, go ahead and serve this out.
Yes, sir. So again, for maybe more so for the public's benefit, the county built the McDowell County Senior Center in Marion about 2002 or 3. In the lower level, there were intentionally built spaces to rent out to help pay for the debt payment for the building, et cetera. One of those early tenants and the current tenant, private tenant, is DaVita Dialysis. And so they've been there, I think, since 2003. They had sent a letter probably about 2 months ago wanting to continue that relationship with the county. We brought that letter to the board on October 1st. Essentially what they were asking for, their current lease expires in 2020. They're asking for that to have options up to the year 2035. Sounds way out in the future, but it's not that far away when you think about it. What the board said at the time was that you would agree to a 5-year option going from 2020 to 2025. And that was it at that point, and maybe at some point in that realm you would consider an extension. Their response back, I guess, to that offer, if that's what that was they appreciate that, but they would like to at least go to 2030. And the reasoning was that there are investments they would make in the facility that to them would only make sense if they had 10 or 12 years of recoupment, I guess, for that investment. So again, I think they had talked additional stations and investment, capital investment they would make in the space. We're not talking painting and carpet, we're talking heavy equipment for the dialysis process. And so they didn't say if they don't go past 2025 or leaving, but they did say that would maybe hinge on whether they would make the additional investment.
What, as far as the capital expenditure, have they given you a dollar amount?
They have not. No. We did meet, so we've dealt with sort of their regional leasing agent. As we're county staff are now neighbors with DaVita, we've been talking with them, this new signage and things. And their clinical person did mention that they are looking at that. I didn't know if she was aware of any of these lease discussions. So I could tell they are talking about some additional investment there. So.
And what the board approved through 2025, correct, with the new increase in the rent?
That's
they
right.
were agreeable to the rent increase?
They were fine with that.
Okay. Well, they're asking for another 5-year commitment. That's 10 years, 12 years. We need to, if for my take, for me, I'll be more than happy to consider that, but the rent's going up. You know, everything goes up almost every year, so they can't expect us to lock in for 10 years.
They're offering $7,000 a year.
And that's going through 2025. That was sort of the original discussion back on October 1st.
That's what we said, right?
Right. You would give the additional 5 for that additional $7,000 per year.
Yeah. Well, for my take, the board can comment, but I have no problem extending the lease, but we need to look on my opinion, the rent needs to go up. They're providing a good service, and that's great, but we're giving them a pretty good rate too on that location.
Are you saying, Council?
Go ahead, Randy.
Are you saying increase their rent now or increase it over the years in a term?
I'm saying when they sign this lease, they're going to 53,330
Right.
for the next 5 years from 2020 to 2025. And then for my take, if we're going from 25 to 30 and committing that now, we need to sort of throw out a dollar amount to them that it's going to be starting in 2025. It's going to be more.
Or leave it open where we can discuss it in that 5-year period.
That's good too.
I think so, because medical equipment is so high. I can see their point, because like my chiropractor, he said, he hadn't bought a specific piece of equipment because maybe he was going to retire in 6 years, and he said, I'll never recoup my money in that 6 years. So I can see their point too. And if they put equipment in there, although they would probably take it with them, but still, they need to know that they're going to get a return on their investment for our county too.
If they sign a lease though, moving forward from 25 to 30, Well, there needs to be a dollar amount there, right? I mean, if you're not gonna sign the lease, are you just giving them an option in year 2025?
I think what they would prefer is an option on their end for, the first one would be both 5 years, the 20 to 25, and then another 5-year option from 25 to 30. And something may come along in that period where they say, you know what, we decided we're gonna build something on our own.
They outgrow it.
They outgrow it. There's all kinds of scenarios.
We need to keep in mind too, the things that we've been discussing here this evening. There's a lot of our county folks that are working over there,
That's right.
okay? So we want to keep them working.
Well, not just that, but it's a good, handy facility for the people of the county. I mean, we've got a lot of people in this county that use that otherwise would have to drive to Buncombe or to Burke to get to the houses. And so we certainly don't want to jeopardize the chance of losing.
I don't think that it's a good business move ever to just lock yourself in where you don't have an option to talk about it later. So if we can leave that open where we can bring it up and talk about it later, then I've got no problem with extending it, but with that option.
Yeah, our board could be totally different from them too.
Yeah.
You know, we're tying that board down, so it could be totally different in 5 years.
Yeah.
You gonna charge them a price for the option?
No.
No.
All right.
I think the option comes back, then we can look at the increase at that time, bring it back, because it's an option. It's an option for us to whether or not.
It'll be an option just
I
on
mean, it's
that.
just, yeah.
So if you commit to this tonight, you can't kick them out, at least until 2030. Unless you were to negotiate a buyout.
$10 years is gonna fly. As for me, it's 10 years.
So if we went up 7 for this 5 years, then we put the option in there that they've got the extra. Then they're gonna pay up $7,000 more for the next 5-year options that were within 2025. That next 5-year option will start $7,000 increase.
Yeah, because we've already agreed to that. That was our offer to them.
What about going back to them?
25 and 30.
Going back to them and say that we agree to this, would agree to this at 20, for 5 more years. And then for the additional 5 that they're asking for, then we would like them to step up to about 56,000.
Only 3,000.
But then you're putting the price tag on it, then.
But it's not
At
going
that
on now.
point, at that point, and we're talking about 5 years from now.
So are you saying a minimum, starting in 2025, a minimum of 56,000, it could be higher? I'm not sure if it works.
I would think, I'm talking about a cap, you know.
Okay.
I'm talking about a cap. That's a $10,000 difference in what it is now.
If they go over 30/30, they would have to renegotiate.
Yeah. I think that's all we could ask for, personally. I don't think we could ask for more than that right now.
Plus the capital investments are gonna make them do it.
I'm not gonna be the one that gets accused of running them out.
We need them here. Our citizens need them here.
Busy place.
So that's my take. You know, if we need to table this and bring it and come back,
I
There's
think
no
we need to hear an
huge
answer
rush
from them.
on it. I think if they understand that there's a positive discussion, that you're not kicking them out to the curb, I think they would be
in my
fine.
opinion, that we table it tonight and do some negotiating.
Because, I mean, nobody wants to see them leave. I mean, no board member wants DeVita to pull out and us to have a location to serve the county residents.
While you've got both parties working in good faith, it's a good time to talk about it. So let's go back and see what they've got to
Let's
say.
go back to the table.
Yes, sir. Okay.
All right, let's move on to the next item. This would be board appointments. You have a ballot sheet in front of you, gentlemen and ladies. For the planning board, this is a second reading. We have 2 applicants, and we are ready to vote tonight. So vote and pass that down to our clerk.
You need help on here?
Just fine, amongst all this.
So is Florida, isn't it?
Is that supposed to sign up?
Yes, they all have to be signed. I have one that's not signed.
Why is it always Florida if you go?
Okay, we had two applicants, Van Boyd and Alpo Portelli, for the planning board. This is the second reading, and the vote is 4 votes for Van Boyd and 1 vote for Alpo Portelli. So I'll notify Mr. Boyd of his reappointment.
What was the breakdown of the vote?
4 to 1.
I mean,
4 for Boyd,
oh, I know that. What? Okay.
1 for Portelli.
Okay, gotcha.
And also, we need a commissioner to attend the Legislative Goals Conference Thursday and Friday, January 10th and 11th in Raleigh, to be a voting delegate.
We already have a volunteer for that, didn't we?
Commissioner Green attended last year, and I believe is willing to do it again this year.
I make a motion to send Commissioner Green.
I'll second.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. All right, Mr. Green, thanks so much for representing McDowell County. Let's move to item A in the new business tax matters. Mr. Wood, go ahead and read this out, sir.
Yes, sir. These are routine or typical releases, refunds, etc.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? You've had the opportunity to look at these, review them.
Move that we approve the tax matters as presented.
Second.
Okay, discussion. All in favor, say aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you. Let's move to item B in the new business. This will be the Todd Greenway bid approval. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
These are 3 words in sequence I didn't think we'd see for ever. So again, it's getting late, but just a brief overview. The county's been working for, actually since Mr. Abernathy was manager, to apply for funding for a Greenway Trail on county property near the Pleasant Gardens community. We have received Parks and Recreation Trust Fund funding. Several years ago, we received a special appropriation from General Assembly in this time frame. And so a little over a year ago, I selected McGill Associates to begin the design and permitting for this project. And we learned very quickly that building a trail beside the river is not very easy. It's not as easy as you would imagine, I would imagine. Especially all of that area that we're talking about on county property is in a floodway, which increases permitting time and expense. But regardless, we've been moving forward. The project was actually first put out for bid in June. We had 1 bidder, and the bid was extremely high. And what we were trying to do at that time, the goal has been to connect as close to the existing phase 1 back to the county property. So that's essentially from US 70 Roby Conley area, crossing on the south side of the river towards county property off Old Greenlee Road. That bid, it was just not doable. So we rejected the bid. We huddled with the engineer to look at ways to reduce costs. There's a bridge across Nix Creek that was in that proposal. That bridge was redesigned. We looked at all the different ways to reduce the cost. One of the ways to try to make it affordable was splitting the project into different phases and parts. So really what we ended up with are 2 parts. And they're listed as phase 1 and phase 2. I wouldn't get hung up on that, but phase 1, which is on your bid sheet, is essentially the county property. Phase 2 would cross the Dr. Woody property and the Ford Miller property. When we opened the bids on October 9th, I believe, we had 3 bidders, which is a vast improvement, 300% improvement over last time. The low bidder was Baker Grading. I've highlighted the recommended sections. So looking at the available funding, we're only able to do the highlighted sections. So what does that mean? That means essentially going back to the original Part F project that we applied for about 3 years ago, and doing a 10-foot paved trail, which is the alternate 4A at the bottom. We had bid it unpaved, and we're not recommending that. So when you total those 2 items together, we would look at the 2 projects there. It's about $670,000, which is in hand and ready to go. There are some, we've talked to the contractor informally about making further additions to the trail that has been spec'd. We're probably not going to have enough funding to cross Nicks Creek to get to Ford Miller's property, Mr. Miller's property. But we're going to get as close as we can. So at a minimum, we'll do the county property. But we'd like to do a little bit more if funds will allow. So again, saying all that, staff does recommend awarding the project to Baker Grading, which is a local company. Phase 1 of $594,957.19. The alternate 4A, $70,128.70. And that's that you award that tonight.
Am I correct in saying that the state provides all repair work under
So, unfortunately, not with this funding. This funding allowed just for construction.
So whenever they wash away, because of doesn't the state come back and pay to repair those?
So what, and the city of Marion is a very good example. They had damage under actually Alberto, Florence, and Michael. That's been a tough year. In those instances where it is a federal disaster and there's a public assistance declaration like Mr. Kehler talked about, they are eligible for pretty much 100% reimbursement for debris removal and repairs to that infrastructure. So that, and again, it's hard, but you lose track when you have 3 different storms, but Alberto was not a federal declaration, so any damages that the city incurred and made repairs to, which they did, hoping for reimbursement, those will not be reimbursed. And Mr. Kehler also mentioned that the state of North Carolina, when they do an emergency declaration, they will not reimburse for recreation properties, regardless if it's a trail, a ball field, etc. But if it's a federal, it's 100%. Hurricane Michael, the city sustained damage on the Greenway again. We feel like there, statewide, there is enough damage to have a federal declaration, and we feel confident that there is enough in the county for a local declaration.
But we had flooding that occurred that was not falling under the FEMA.
Right, mostly Alberto, but sometimes we just have heavy rains.
Yeah, that's the price you pay on the river, and I guess that's where the Greenway project has to be sad.
The good thing though is it's a city, and the Trails Organization wants to talk with the county.
That's right.
And get together and work out moving forward several prongs, but one of them would be, for what Christian Brown stated, would be some type of repair agreement with the county and the Trails Organization. And since we're getting ready to move over to next to the river, that might be in our interest to sit down and talk with them and see what discussion we bring back to the respective boards. Brenda's on that committee, the utility committee, we discussed that this past month, to bring back at a later date. And Baker's got experience, he did the city greenway, Joseph McDowell.
He does good work.
He's a good guy.
They did it around the Spalding Road project for the county too.
Other comments, questions? What's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to move forward with it.
I second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, like sign. Okay. Administrative items, let's go to that. Item C. And Mr. Wood, go ahead and lead us out.
Okay, you have quite a few. You have if it's okay, I think it helps with the minutes and the auditors if we kind of treat them separately. The first is the leak waiver from the Nebo water system. And again, if any of this is ever presented in a way that you'd like it done differently, just let us know. But you have the amount of $48.30. You have a note from the property owner, resident, and you also have essentially proof of the plumbing repair that we made. I would ask for a waiver on that.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, Mr. Wood.
Okay, the next one is a little bit more than $48. We're required to do it for the tax collector and also for the finance office. Accounts that we no longer can collect. These are deceased individuals that had no estate. And so you'll see the total there on page 89. And this is about 10 years worth of accounts. So it's a tremendous amount of accounts. And so when you have an ambulance, here's one, a random one that's $1,000. We're going to write off because they were destitute and had no estate, and they're deceased.
Okay, comments, questions?
You said this was 10 years, right? We just had one, just a few months ago, like 300,000.
It's it's not inclusive of 10 years, it's the 10-year roll-off,
Right,
so these
okay.
are over 10 years old. Pardon me.
$421,662. That's your money we can't collect.
There's a tremendous amount of effort that goes into it, and again, it's not people kicking down doors and things, but it's collection agencies and garnishments and things that are justified.
Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? This is statement, the state has guidelines to counties regarding this.
We have to roll it off, otherwise.
So we've got to do it, right?
Can't do it all.
Get a motion. Second discussion, all in favor, say aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay?
The next one is a project budget ordinance for the Crane Resistive Flex building reuse project. Should be underway.
Motion approved.
Second.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign.
We have a number of budget amendments. I could read them all if you would like.
I read.
We've had these.
Okay, you've had them, commissioners. Is there a specific one that any commissioner wants brought forward? If not, I'll entertain approving the lot.
Make a motion to approve. Second.
Discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign.
Thank you.
Okay, now let's move to the next item under new business. This will be the health department fee request. Mr. Wood, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. You've previously received information from the health district on environmental health area. And part of that discussion, there was an indication that the district board would request that McDowell County equalize the fees that are charged in the environmental health section to be level with Polk and Rutherford County. So you have in front of you, the fee schedules from Polk and Rutherford as well as McDowell County. And so an example for those that are listening or watching that don't have it, a new on-site wastewater system sustainability evaluation from McDowell County is currently $300. The other two counties charge $400. The district charges that amount in those two counties. An on-site wastewater system reevaluation is currently $150 in McDowell, and the other two counties is $200. So you get the point that there's an inconsistency in the two other counties in the district versus McDowell.
Mr. Williams, we can probably speed this up.
Sure.
So the highlighted is what the other two counties in the three-county district are paying currently, correct?
That's right.
Okay, and we're not paying what the other two partners are paying, correct?
That's right.
Okay, we need to do our fair share. So, comments, questions? Entertain a motion.
I'd move that we increase our fees to equal Polk and Rutherford.
Okay, got a motion, got a second? Second. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, like sign. Okay, passes 5-0. We do have our health district director here, Ms. Karen back there, some staff, so good to have y'all tonight. And, you know, typically, we're probably halfway through our year, and normally this will be an amendment that's going to take place in the fee schedule, but there's a real need for the inspectors, and that's what's driving this request, because they're having a hard time hiring people to go out and do perform these tests. Tony, you know, you see it, you know, you have people call you, and other commissioners have. So we want to make sure that we remove any barrier or obstacle to that, so we can do our fair share and get our citizens taken care of. And we appreciate the district and what y'all are doing and how y'all really remove that backlog. That's very impressive, and the board takes note of that. So thank you so much for getting that down, and we look forward to continued partnership on an equal basis moving forward. Comments, questions by board members? Okay. There being none, okay, let's move on. Thanks, y'all. Let's move on to the next item. This will be item E under new business, the Lake James ordinance request from the planning board. Mr. Williams.
Yeah, well, Mr. Harmon's coming up to talk in more detail about this. Just the general background, the county has 3 separate ordinances governing development on Lake James. And so the planning board is asked to have permission to look at those ordinances and how to improve them.
With about 10 developments now that we govern, we've got 3 different versions, the 1960, 03, and the 2016. And basically what the planning board would like to do is take the better elements of the 2016 ordinance in regards to violations, a replanting timetable, and violations, and add that to the other 2 and try to unify the sections to make it all a little more fluid. I like to aggravate Blair, our planning assistant. If I get hit by a bus, it's all hers. And I had the good fortune of being here through basically the whole process, but it can get confusing. So if we can combine things without changing the entire intent of the ordinance, that would make life a whole lot easier. And we're not talking about changing the setbacks or things like that. We're just talking about the things that all of them share in common as far as violations and things.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion to give them go ahead.
Okay, we have a motion. Second discussion. All in favor of the motion say aye. Aye. Okay, any opposed, like sign. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ron.
I moved yes just because that Steve retired on, okay?
All right, let's move to the next item on the agenda under new business. This will be item F. This will be the SRO funding agreement with the City of Marion. Mr. Williams, go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. So in the current year planning process for this year's budget, there was a heavy emphasis by this board on increasing funding for the school resource officers and the school security for the schools under or outside the municipal jurisdictions. There was a great hope that there would be grant funding from the state and possibly the federal government, but definitely the state, that would help pay for additional school resource officers in our elementary schools especially. There was a grant program. The school system applied for funding that was awarded. There's a caveat though, some of the original funding we were getting, it was at a higher level. And so now we received a broader pool of money, but it's spread out more thin. So maybe a good example, if we had a deputy, benefits, salary, et cetera, that was $45,000, it might have been more of a 50-50 share that the state was paying and the county was paying the difference. Now they're paying a third of that. So they're spreading the money out over more schools essentially. We're getting a little bit more net from the state, but definitely thanks to the county's contribution, we're able to cover much more than previously. So in talking with the sheriff, which this board has, his goal, prior sheriff's goal, was to have all school day coverage for the elementary schools outside the municipalities. Old Fort has a grant-funded position for Old Fort Elementary. The city has, in addition to the middle school east, they have one position that floats between Marion Elementary and Eastfield Elementary. Sometimes Eastfield's on a different schedule, and that officer can be in Marion 100%. They're in close proximity to East Middle, so there's that officer there. And sometimes they just cover with people that can work. But there has been discussion to make sure all the elementary schools in the county have scheduled 100% coverage, school security. And so the city and county have talked about this topic at the utility committee, which is the monthly meeting between the city, county, and school system. There was a proposal that to get through the rest of the school year, the city and the county cost share the part-time monies it would take to have 100% coverage at the 2 elementary schools inside the city. So that costs for, and it's lowered now at this point, but it's about $30,000 approximately for the rest of the school year. And that covers salary, and it covers the 5% 401k match, benefits, etc., which we do the same for the sheriff's office. So the city, so that would be a big lift for them. That's about a penny on their tax rate. And we do have the additional budgeted funds that we had in excess for the sheriff's program for the elementary schools. So this is the proposal from the utility committee to the full board for the remainder of the school year to fund at about $15,000 or $16,000 part-time monies for those 2 schools.
Okay, comments, questions?
These are covered with full-time officers, right? They're so they pay time and a half overtime.
Not all. Not all. Some of them are not full-time. This one may be, but some of our county are not.
Okay, other comments, questions? What's the pleasure of the board? Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, good. All right, let's see now. We are down to citizen comment. Let's see, where's the clipboard at, Madam Clerk?
It's right here, sir.
Are there any reports, communications from staff or commissioners?
No, just a reminder, if we can adjourn to November 29th at 5 p.m.
Okay. That being said, what's the pleasure of the board?
We adjourn to November 29th, 5 p.m.
Do we have a second? Second. Discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed, like sign. Okay, meeting is adjourned.